Tell me about capacity in airlines internationally right now. Post-COVID, it obviously took a big hit. It's now sort of recovered. The question is whether there is that same demand for flying internationally as there had been pre-COVID, and whether really the problems that you've got with Boeing in particular really mean that you cannot fulfil the demand that's actually coming from the
Well, I can safely say that the demand for travel internationally, long haul, medium long haul, well exceeds the demand that we had prior to COVID. So that's something that people really need to think about. Whether or not it was a COVID effect, that it was a catalyst to unleash these new segments that are coming to market, the quantums that have seriously increased in our shoulder months, we're now full, etc. I don't think Emirates is alone, but because we were one of the first movers to activate our fleet in the middle of COVID, in the belief that it would come bouncing back, as it did, but even we were caught short about the strength of demand in all the segments and in all the routes that we're flying to. It still continues today. Everybody says revenge travel is over, that we're not going to see. On the contrary, I've never seen anything as strong as, for instance, November of last year, a traditional shoulder month for the airline and for the industry as a whole. We were up at peak levels. In January, some of the days we've had broke all records in terms of cash from sales for forward bookings. More and more people are coming to market. They seem to value, I know there's a question about pricing and who's doing what, etc. They seem to value the product in its entirety. And what Emirates offers, particularly in its premium cabins, the compendium of product is so good that people say, you know, we need to do this. Whether or not they were traumatised by what happened in COVID, I think about places like Victoria, which really suffered, and they were locked down for much longer than most, whether that caused a never again type of, and we've got to move, we've got to enjoy, etc. I don't know. It's a difficult one to predict, because even the greatest economists in aviation, with the benefit of 2020 vision, will be able to say, well, that's why it happened. But if you'd asked them to predict what was going to happen in 2021 about what's going on, nobody would have got that right. Emirates had a hunch, an intuition, only because we've been subjected to huge traumas in our part of the world for many, many years, whether it be 9/11, whether it be wars, etc. And each time when we looked, all the maths were telling us that you can gauge a global or a regional incident in the bounce back in demand, and there is a high correlation where the deeper and the longer the trauma, the bigger the push, the response is. And that's exactly what happened in COVID. It was devastating for the global economy. It went on for a long time. The longer it lasted, we knew at that time that it would come back with a vengeance, and it surely did. So we were prepared for that. The question was, how long would it last? And that's the question that goes on today. But at the moment, we see, during the course of 25, a very robust demand in all the segments that we're looking at. We're not alone. People like Delta have said 25 is going to be one of the golden years for them, etc. So I think the industry, just about all areas and all airlines, are experiencing that.
Because you're now, the fact that you could go to any part of the world with one stop, basically from the United Arab Emirates, from Dubai, is now being replicated from Abu Dhabi, it's being replicated from Qatar, it's being replicated now from Istanbul. The question is whether that has any impact on your operations, on the competition that you now feel.
You know, Ross, I've faced this when Etihad was formed, when Qatar was formed, and they always used to say, is there room for three, and how's this going? I said,
now Turkish is there room?
And now Turkish is there. And all I've said, and I'd say that what we have done with our operating model, I'm unashamed to say that it has been emulated by others, but hey ho, that's what competition is all about. And the more we've energized and expanded that model, others have come into it. But what that has done is that it's introduced a new quantum of demand. The pie has got much bigger. As you make connections with classic products at an affordable price, and you open city pairs that hitherto had never been able to be connected, watch what happens.
And are you convinced that travellers want to travel 20 hours, 21 hours in one spot? Are you convinced that they are prepared to travel that long haul?
Well, where we've introduced the 380 on Auckland, Dubai, or we've introduced it on the west coast or the east coast of Australia, all the points down here. They are absolutely convinced it is the only way to travel, providing that your design and suite of products that you're presenting to them are good ones. Basically, look after them, feed them well, give them lots of content on TV, make the seats comfortable, treat them as human beings, not like cattle, and they'll come to you because that's... And they'd rather do that than go via an intermediate point. We can't fly from Australia to Europe because bilaterally we can't. But we ensure that you can go from Sydney to, I don't know, Vienna on a 380 all the way through. You can go from Melbourne to Glasgow all the way through on a 380. That's well appreciated. And I think the question is really, do the single aisle long haul, the 321 XLR that they're introducing now, will people be prepared to sit in those for up to 9 hours in a single aisle configuration? Time will tell. But in the end, people go for a value for money proposition, ease of travel, and hopefully it's enjoyable at the same time. The more you do of that, the more connections that you introduce, notwithstanding the sort of environmental side of things, the more people will travel. And this defines as part of the major pieces of our operating model. If you connect, if you build, if you make it as seamless as possible, they will come. And that's exactly what's happened. So the more we've reached to second and third level points on our network, connected them with the primary hubs in the world, so the model has scaled and energized and delivered the goods for us. So in answer to the question, the three other carriers, I think Riyadh Air is coming up fairly soon. They're going to be, whether or not they're going to focus on Riyadh and Saudi Arabia initially, but eventually they'll break out and go into what we call the sixth freedom markets. You know, as the planet grows, population grows, demand for air travel continues at 4 to 7%, depending on the segments, the regions that you're flying to. Yeah, you'll see a lot more to come.
So Tim Clark, it is always great to catch up with you, get these insights into the aviation world, and many thanks for your time today.
You're welcome. Thank you.